Nat's True Crime Podcast, and I'm going to talk about Lynn Rader, born March 9th, 1945. Dennis Rader, aka the BTK killer, is an American serial killer who killed 10 people between 1974 and 1991. He sent letters to the police and newspapers with details of the killings. The BTK means is bind, torture, kill, and it is a nickname Dennis Rader gave himself. The letters stopped but resumed in 2004. This led to his arrest in 2005. He was convicted later and is currently serving 10 life sentences in a correctional facility in Kansas. BTK's victims 1974 to 1977. The first Dennis Rader victims were the Otero family. They were killed after Rader cut the phone line and forced his way into their home on January 15th, 1974. He suffocated both Joseph Otero and Joseph Otero Jr. with plastic bags, strangled Julie Otero with a length of rope, and hanged Josephine Otero with rope in the basement. He stole a watch and a radio from the home and also left semen at the scene. Otero murders were later discovered by Charles Otero, who had been at school at the time of the killings. After the Otero family murders, Dennis Rader's next victim was Catherine Bright. Catherine Bright was killed by Dennis Rader on 4th April 1974 after he went into her apartment from her to come home later. She was strangled and stabbed 3 times in her abdomen. She was able to phone for an ambulance, but later died in hospital. Her brother Kevin was forced to tie up his sister by gunpoint and afterwards was shot twice. Kevin Bright survived BTK and was able to give police a description of the shooter. Shirley Vian was tied up and strangled with a length of rope in her home on March 17, 1977. Rader had entered the home pretending to be a detective and locked her children in the bathroom. Nancy Fox was killed by BTK on December 8, 1977 in her own home. Rader strangled her with a belt. After the killing, he called the police to report the killing. 8 years later, Dennis Rader killed his neighbor, Maureen Hedge, on April 27th, 1985. He strangled her to death with his bare hands in her home. Dennis Rader later moved her body to his church, where he posed her and took photographs. Her body was not discovered until May 5th and had been left in a ditch at the side of the road. Dennis had prepared for the crime by storing black plastic at his church. Vicky regularly was killed by Dennis Rader on September 16, 1986. She was strangled in her home with a nylon stocking. She was not formally confirmed as a BTK murder victim until 2004, and the investigation had gone cold. There was DNA evidence under her fingernails, and this was tested against 1,300 collected samples. The final victim of Dennis Rader was Dolores E. Davis. She was strangled with a pair of pantyhose in her home on January 19th, 1991, and was later discovered on February 1st. Dennis Rader had planned future killings, but luckily, for various reasons, he was unable to commit those crimes. One such plan was to kill Anna Williams. Dennis Rader had broke into her home, but she was later late returning home. Dennis was obsessed with her and was angry when she did not return home and left. He wrote her a letter to tell her that he had been there. Dennis Rader said in police interviews that there were a lot of lucky people, suggesting he had planned other murders at the time of his arrest. He had planned another killing and had been inside the intended victims' homes. BTK wrote letters containing details of the killings. Same letter from the BTK strangler were sent to newspapers, and some were sent to police, and also some were hidden in public places. A BTK killer letter detailing the killings of the Otero family was hidden in a book in the Wichita Public Library in October 1974 and was given to the a local newspaper. He warned in this letter that he would strike again and signed the letter as BTK. Dennis Rader sent a letter to the local TV station Cake, in which he claimed responsible for the killings of the Otero family, Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, and Nancy Fox. He would often send poems with his BTK letters. With the above letters, he also enclosed a poem called "Oh, Death to Nancy," based on a folk song. He had also sent a letter to a local newspaper after he killed Shirley Vian. Dennis wrote a letter denying involvement from the killings of the Fager family in 1988. The letter was filled of praise for the real killer. Dennis Rader wore a mask and sent photographs of himself wearing it, where he was bound and wearing female clothing stolen from his victims. BTK Letters 2004. After more than a decade of silence from BTK, a new series of letters were sent to the local media. He wrote the letters after he was provoked by a article that wrote claiming he was dead or in prison. In one letter, he claimed responsible for the killing of Vicky Wiggerly and included copies of photographs and of her missing driver's license. A number of packages were sent to the media or left in public in 2004. They contained descriptions of the murders, suggested chapters of a book, and other bizarre items include threats against investigators. In one package, he claimed responsibility for the death of Jake Allen. This was a false claim, as his death was officially ruled a suicide. In December 2004, a package was sent to the police from Dennis. This contained the missing driver's license of Nancy Fox and a doll that was bound similarly to his victims. In January 2000, he sent a number of postcards sent to Cake television station, and another package containing another bound doll was found. The investigators at the time of the killings had very few leads. There was DNA evidence, but after extensive testing, a match had not been found. Kevin Bright was a BTK survivor, and descriptions her killer as a average size guy, bushy mustache, psychotic eyes. Police released the recording of his telephone call to the police, but this brought about few leads as a result of the lack of evidence. The case was considered a cold case in 2004. The case was reopened due to the letter BTK sent to local media in 2004. After one failed package delivery, police were able to ascertain that the BTK killer drove a dark Jeep Cherokee. Police tricked Dennis Rader into sending his letter via floppy disk after he asked if they could be traced back to him. Police received a floppy disk and, after analysis, were able to find a deleted document that mentions both the Christ Lutheran Church and the name Dennis. They ran a search and was able to link Dennis Rader to the church. Dennis Rader became a suspect after they drove past his home and saw his black Jeep Cherokee parked outside. As the police requested further evidence in order to make an arrest, that obtained a warrant to test Dennis Rader's daughter Carrie's DNA against DNA from a BTK crime scene. The results were a similar match to the semen collected from the Otero crime scene and allowed the police to issue a arrest warrant. The FBI took a second sample from Carrie after Dennis Rader's arrest. After the BTK killer was caught, the FBI and surrounding state police force looked into their own cold cases, but was unable to link any to Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader was arrested close to his home on February 25th, 2005, and charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. BTK knew he was caught and why he was being arrested and was cooperative with police. After the BTK arrest, police searched Rader's home, church, and his office. In his office, they found photos of Vicky, original driver's license. Unconfirmed source told the press that he had confessed to the BTK murders and other unsolved murders. Initially, Dennis Rader pleaded not guilty before later changing his plea to guilty. He described all of the murders with very little emotion and offered no explanation or apology. Sentence at his sentence trial on August 18th, Dennis Rader showed little emotion to the family statement and gave an apology speech that the prosecutor compared it to a dramatic award speech. Dennis Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences, and he is to serve at least 175 years. He was placed in solitary confinement shortly after arriving at the prison. Personal life. Dennis Rader, a young life was full of neglect from his parents, and he became obsessed with cross-dressing and had sick sexual fantasies during his childhood. Dennis Rader also killed and tortured small animals. As an adult, Dennis Rader had a family and led from the outside a perfectly normal life. Dennis Rader had a wife, Paula Dietz, and 2 children. Dennis Rader's son, Brian Rader, leads a private life after attending college. Kerry Rawson published a book on being the BTK killer's daughter. Dennis Rader worked good, stable jobs. He worked first as a alarm fitter for ADT and later as a compliance supervisor for the city. Dennis Rader was also a church leader and was a Boy Scout leader. Media. A number of books, BTK movies, and documentaries were released about Dennis Rader. Confirming of a serial killer was written by Catherine Ramsland and featured a compilation of her correspondence with Dennis. The Hunt for BTK Killer and BTK were BTK Killer movies about Dennis Rader, and he was a character in Netflix series Mindhunter. In 2019, a new BTK Killer documentary, A Killer Among Us, was released. One of the BTK drawings was found inside a book in 2007 and drew heavy media attention. Thanks for watching my podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment.